Hello, it's Anna here from the Mindful Breastfeeding School, and today I'm joined by Sophie Burch. Sophie is a perinatal therapist and coach and founder of Beyond Birth Mindful Early Parenting. Welcome, Sophie, and thank you for joining me. I mean, we often chat personally and on Instagram and all sorts of places, but this is our first podcast episode, so I'm very happy to have you here. Do you want to introduce yourself a bit further and tell people a little bit more about what you do?
Thanks, Anna. I have been looking forward to this for so long. I mean, we could wax lyrical forever, couldn't we?
Mm-hmm.
We have very similar passions. We're complete kindred. So I'm really pleased that you invited me here today. And to tell people a bit more about me, I'm a mum of four. I have 4 boys and twins, not 2 sets of twins. My last pregnancy was twins. I have reinvented myself in motherhood. I used to be a professional singer and I worked in film production. And then I had my first baby, experienced postnatal depression and birth trauma, and reinvented the wheel from there on, realizing how much support people like me needed and how little there was really that was accessible at the time. Obviously, that's changed quite significantly now, but for 16 years, I've been making it my life's aim, my mission, to bring emotional well-being into the lives of all parents, starting perinatally. And that's why I wrote my book, Beyond Birth, and that became some sessions for parents as well, so like support sessions. And then I created a training program for professionals who also now run beyond and before birth sessions. So it covers from late pregnancy all the way through the first few years with a little one. And it's just about keeping things as basic and simple as possible, but realizing the importance of taking care of ourselves mentally and emotionally, removing stigmas, having, just a gentle awareness of self a little bit more. That makes a massive difference to the family, to the babies. This ripples out to everybody in the family. And it's not something that we have been educated about. So we find that, parents are struggling, especially with the pandemic as well. But even before that, they were, because of the significant changes that happen. Generally speaking, you don't have to have had a significant trauma or anything like that for your mental and emotional well-being to be, to not feel right, everything to feel off kilter when you become a parent, because it's a major transition. So when I wrote Beyond Birth, actually, it was before the pandemic happened. Now, obviously, all we talk about is COVID and the pandemic and how it has affected us. But, like you, Anna, we both realized this, didn't we, many, many years ago, that there was a real need for gentle, simple emotional well-being practices that do actually make much more of a difference than we realize, just so that we can take care of ourselves as a whole and not just worry about losing the baby weight and getting all the sleep we need. It's so much more than that.
Yeah, I think, often when we think about mental well-being, we think about mental health. And when I say we, I don't mean you and I necessarily. I think I mean as a culture. So I think when we, perhaps not now, but when we used to speak about this stuff, people would automatically think postnatal depression, a diagnosis, or having a problem diagnosed. But I think what we, and of course our tools and the services that we provide, help with if people do find themselves in that situation where they have got a mental illness diagnosis. But actually, it's really important that all of us look after our mental well-being, isn't it? Especially at a time in our lives which is challenging on so many levels. And I think that's where we are both trying to come across, that it's really important to look after our mental health. But also the other side of that coin is that every day, looking after our mental well-being, making sure that we are the best that we can be, not just sort of thinking, well, I don't need that stuff because I don't have postnatal depression or postnatal anxiety diagnosis.
Absolutely. I'm so into the idea of prevention and protection and preservation, all the P's for our mental well-being. The thing that we find obviously is that we still have a lot of kind of a blueprint of fear attached to the idea of mental health and well-being. People don't really understand it, and perhaps they've heard horror stories, and of course they probably have watched media, with people who are mentally unwell being tortured or manipulated in some awful way. And of course that subconsciously breeds the fear in us. And the biggest point of fear that I come across with new parents who come to me is this fear of having our baby taken away from us. If we admit to what's going on with us mentally, we don't need to be having any mental health issues at the time, but it's very common, for instance, to have intrusive thoughts when you're having, when you've got a new baby and you're tired. But of course those things can terrify us if we don't really understand what that's about and the reasons why. We think, oh my goodness, am I going to act on that? Am I going to drop the baby down the stairs because I've thought about it? Am I going to push the buggy out in front of a lorry because it just crossed my mind to do so? So it's about gently educating, re-educating, I think, and understanding that it doesn't need to be scary and it doesn't need to be heavy, and it is actually part and parcel of us and who we are. And by taking care of ourselves in a mental and emotional way, it's not a big deal. It's actually something that is really common and normal, and something perhaps that we probably do anyway, but just don't realize it. For instance, going out, knowing that you've got to get out and go for a walk because you're finding it too heavy indoors, perhaps with a new baby, and you go out and you think, oh, I know, when you come back home, you'll feel better. You may not think about the reasons why or how you feel better, but you do. Yeah, there's so many ways that we can do this, and we inherently have that. We have a toolbox, but we generally don't necessarily trust in it or understand it enough. So it's, perhaps things also that our parents have said to us, often. I mean, how many times I was told, just go for a walk, get it, go and release that frustration, that anger, get outside and just go and breathe some, take 10 deep breaths, you'll feel better. So I think a lot of, perhaps what we do is with the mindful approach is about recognizing that and being more aware and doing things more with intent, because when we do that, it feels better generally. So we're not reinventing the wheel here. We're just helping people to sort of tune in to the things that are already there as well.
Yeah, I really like that. I think parenting is often challenging in a way that we never expected. I think the birth of a baby, or the expectation of a baby. I mean, I was somebody who, it took us about a year to get pregnant, so nowhere near as long as it does for some people, but we weren't one of those people who just, it happened. It was quite a stressful time. So that baby, my first child, was so wanted, and so I felt so ready for it, but it was still a huge shock when he came along. The shock of having to meet another person's needs so much 24 hours a day, not always knowing what that other human being needed, and then also the kind of change in my identity. Who was I just somebody's mum? I wasn't working anymore because I was on maternity leave, and I'd lost that connection with my colleagues, and everything changed. And I think I wasn't ready for that. I don't know how we get ready for that, but I do know. No, I didn't at the time. But I think but we don't want to send people into parenthood with lots of negativity. There's nothing worse, isn't it? That friend that says, oh, you wait the sleepless night, you hate how awful it is, and enjoy the childless time now. I mean, that's awful. But where's the middle ground, do you think, with that kind of, how can we, or is it just going with the flow, but also having some support support and tools there, so that when things do get challenging or we do feel low, that we have some things that we can work with?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think that what we're all very aware of, let's use the example of physical health, for instance. Okay, so we're all aware that we've had conditioning now over the years to know that we have to do a certain amount of physical activity to remain healthy, and we also have to eat enough fruit and vegetables and fiber and a balanced diet in order to remain healthy, feeling okay, feeling good. We know that that takes effort as well. We accept that. Not everybody does it to the level that they know inherently is the right thing to do. Some people do it too much, some people too little, etc. That's normal. But we know we have a conditioning and education around that. So what I'm saying here is why don't we do that for emotional and mental health and well-being? So it's like, we know we have to put the work in. We do. We can't just wave a magic wand all the time and for it just to be okay. But if we put the commitment in, it starts to feel less of an effort and more of a habit that is just there. It's a normal way of being. It's like another new blueprint, essentially. So when we wake up in the morning, we think, what do I need today? What's going to help? What are my non-negotiables for today? How's today going to pan out for me? And you learn to check in with yourself regularly. So these are the basic things that I work with parents around, is learning these new ways of grounding, of remembering to take some deep breaths, knowing when our trigger times are, recognizing the red flags that are cropping up for us when perhaps our nervous system is extra spiky, and it's these things that I call preventative. Yep. And these are protective. So we start to have a bigger awareness of self. So there are going to be good days and bad days. There's going to be days where they're nothing days, they're just coasting days, and like you said earlier, I love that phrase, go with the flow. When you become a parent, effectively you grow with that flow, because you're learning about yourself in a new way, whether you've had its first baby, second baby, third baby, fourth baby. In my case, it was a new learning experience each time. So it was about growth and seeing the opportunities in the learning and growing through those red flags as well, that I recognizing what my limits were, being kinder to myself, learning self-compassion tools, and self-compassion as well being a real biggie when it's parenting, because often we look externally for parental support, and we must have that. We're not meant to do it on our own. Yet what we've lost the ability of doing, I believe, is inner parenting. So that's where that self-compassion comes from, and that the inner parent is the one that says, I know you're not feeling like you want to do this, but just do it anyway and see how you feel afterwards. It's not just about giving yourself time out all the time, which is lovely. But there's so much that crops up about the inner critic, that inner voice as well. And I think that what we become afraid of is avoidance and fear, and going down that route of the things that we can't do, that we believe that we're not good enough, that we're not achieving enough, because we have all this messaging externally. And what we forget is actually that we have it all that we need, and that we are good enough, because over time it's easy to become conditioned to listen to what others say, and especially our society. And like you said, when we become detached from our norm, like you stopped work and you became a mother, so you lost touch with the people that you were working with day in, day out, that you had these relationships with. It's a whole shift in identity. And when you don't have that connection, who do you have for external validation? like, apart from your baby day in, day out, who's not really going to be saying much to you and is just very demanding continuously, this is where we need, obviously, very supportive partner, friends, family around us. But that is exceptionally challenging. So, if we can work on ourselves as soon as we know we're pregnant, or even before that, about what are our needs, what are we going to need when we're shifting into that parental role, then that can be really useful as well, in terms of building resilience, but managing those thoughts and feelings when they crop up. Yeah. What did you do that was most helpful then, do you think, when you were feeling like that?
I'm not sure. I think I wish I'd known everything I know now when I'd had my first two boys. I had two under two. And in all honesty, I thought I had to do everything. I thought I had to do it all. I thought I had to, have the house sorted when my husband got home. I thought I had to take the kids off to their clubs and things, which I loved. I had a great friendship group. So I think, but I never thought about what I needed for myself. But I look back, we're talking sort of 14 years ago now, 12, 13, 14 years ago. I look back and I think the way I was incredibly blessed was I had a group of friends with babies the same age, and we just used to get together and we used to just go through it all together. We used to go through the breastfeeding challenges, and the kind of sleep conversations, and we had our toddlers kind of taking toys off each other and falling out and discussing how discipline, all of that stuff. And I just think I was so lucky, and I think that's something that I'm really aware of now, is a lot of parents don't have that. And I know we don't want to talk about the pandemic all the time, but I think that's that really was what got me through. And I think a lot of parents haven't got that at the moment because they haven't been able to meet up with other people, see friends as much as they might do in that first year of their baby's life. So I'm wondering, what can people do? And we've talked a little bit about, going out for some walks. You've talked a lot about this. I think the way you describe it is like building a relationship with yourself, building up, really knowing yourself. And that's what mindfulness is about. It sounds, sometimes when you say that, it sounds quite self-indulgent, but it's the opposite, because to really place yourself in the world in a way that is not satisfactory, enjoyable, pleasurable, fun, that makes you happy, you need to know and understand yourself. And when you know and understand yourself, and you're feeling positive emotions in your life, then that does get passed on to your children as well, and like you said, everyone around you. So I've lost my point now.
It's what can we do when we're in that situation? Yeah, absolutely. I think the first thing is to actually give yourself permission to feel the grief and the loss that you may be experiencing. Often people will try to shelve that because it's too uncomfortable. It's too much. It's okay to grieve an experience that hasn't happened, that you expected to, that you thought was going to happen. It feels the same as any other grief. So it's really important to recognize that, but equally to see the opportunity to make the changes where they need to be. So rather than focus on the lack of the things that we don't have, it's more about focusing on the gratitude for the things that we do, and that isn't always easy at all. It's much easier said than done, but just a daily practice of gratitude, for instance, can be enough just to shift that heaviness, that sense of loss that is so heartbreaking, that makes us feel that it's never going to be the same again, and that perhaps we failed our babies, or that really does come up. So it's about forgiving ourselves, saying it's not our fault. This isn't something that we could have controlled or been in control of. So what can we do? We can see the opportunities rather than the places of lack. So the opportunity perhaps of saying, okay, so I haven't been out and about, my meeting other parents and babies face to face, but actually what I have managed to do is have this amazing time with my baby, where actually, nature has provided me everything I need, the oxytocin, the skin to skin, the loving, warm, sort of cocoon-like environment that we can create. Because actually, on the other side of that coin, when you're very busy and going to every baby group and seeing everybody, you can actually start to feel quite detached. You use that almost as an avoidance tactic, too closely bonding with your baby, because it may not feel very normal to do so. So there's always two sides to the coin, isn't there? There's a yin to the yang for everything. And a lot of the work that I do as a therapist with parents that come to me is about recognizing what we are in control of and what we are not, and being okay. So again, the mindfulness element of that is a lot of acceptance. It's learning to sit with what's coming up, even if it feels a little bit uncomfortable at times, but to recognize it for what it is. Okay. And that, when we have a world that tells us to stop and stay home, actually can be in our favor. We can do a lot of self-development and growth work when the noise externally is stopped, because we've got no other choice. So in that way, it's an opportunity. But we need hand-holding through that. So, calling upon remote or virtual therapy or coaching or parent baby groups that are being run online is an option. And actually, when we first had our kids all those years ago, we didn't have that, did we? So if we'd gone through a pandemic then, we would not have had online anything.
No.
And that would have been, interesting. Again, I'm sure we probably would have been quite resourceful of finding ways through, and just probably spending 24 hours a day on the phone to each other. But yeah, so it's about saying, okay, so it's not the same as what we imagined and what we hoped, yet what can we get from this anyway?
I've really seen the power of gratitude, actually, with some people going through very, very difficult circumstances where, just finding maybe one thing a day to be grateful for has really, it sounds so simple, and it might feel quite hard when you're going through something really big, some kind of trauma or a loss. And I think, to be able to, in those darkest moments, to almost accept how you're feeling, accept that it's okay to feel like that. Because often we have these sort of a meta emotions, don't we? I'm feeling like this, and then you feel guilt for feeling like that. Well, I don't want to feel depressed around my baby, and then you're beating yourself up about that. So it's sort of this feeling on a period. But if we were more accepting that, yes, of course I am feeling depressed right now, of course this is difficult because we're having this shift, parent and love yourself within that emotion, but then also looking for these little glimmers. And I do think gratitude is a lovely one. So is just getting outside in nature sometimes and looking around you and seeing the world, and because we can get so closed in on ourselves and everything that's going on in our world, but actually there is this great big world out there. And sometimes for me, just looking at nature in detail can make me feel like, well, actually I'm also this cyclical being that changes and adapts, and that's okay, and that's something that I find really useful. So but we know, don't we, and that's one thing the research has really shown us over the last few years, that getting out in nature, however that might look, helps us a lot.
And when we do it with intent, it feels all the more amazing, actually. And that's where mindfulness again comes into it. So sensory awareness, so being just, even if you haven't got a garden and you can just open the window and pop your head out the window and breathe the sky in, the clouds, the whole kind of intent to fill your body with oxygen and let go of the things that are no longer serving you. Anything like that is actually, in those moments, really powerful. But getting out in nature, using sensory awareness, what can I see? What can I hear? What does it, feel like to me? Even what does the air taste like? You know, how is this whole sensory experience for me? What does it smell like as well? Is great for our emotional balance.
Yeah.
And it triggers all the right stuff in our endocrine system to help us to feel better in the moment as well. So just thinking about these things with a little bit more with intent makes a really big difference. So being mindfully aware, just bring some awareness to where you are, what you're doing, even if it's at home. You know, noticing the four walls around you actually can be a really powerful moment. You can go, you can see things as if you're seeing them for the first time. Be inquisitive, and you know, perhaps if you've got slightly older children, but you know, be inquisitive through their eyes too. We forget as we become adults, we get all serious and responsible, of course, and there's all sorts of baggage that we bring with us as well from our own childhoods. And when we become parents, that usually smacks us right between the eyes in terms of, you know, sense and sensibility and everything else in between. But what we can do is that we forget we have this ability to tune into our inner childlike mind. It's what we call the subconscious. It means going past that kind of critical neocortex, the critical mind, and getting back, you know, as a hypnotherapist, I work with this all the time, the power of imagination and visualization and word, and we can use that to our advantage. It's, you know, seeing the world through a child's eyes is quite fun to do. It lightens the mood. It enables you to connect more deeply with your children, with your babies, and it gives you a moment of grace in terms of your mind that's perhaps been quite busy and worrying and distracting you in ways that doesn't feel comfortable. So you can bring the attention into where you do want to be, what is making you feel better and more alive and more connected. And that's, you know, very powerful, and it only takes a couple of minutes, if that. Yeah, the mind works really quickly.
Yeah, I love that. Just that starting with an intention and taking an action, which at the time may not even feel that comfortable because you're breaking a habit perhaps, but actually it's those little steps and making those little changes that make all the difference.
Yeah, and I think becoming a parent can be very heavy and serious, and it's important for us to be more playful, and to give ourselves permission to do that too. And it can, for some it's very difficult, and it can feel mind-numbingly boring at times. I completely get it. Oh my goodness, the amount of times that I just said, I don't want to play Thomas Tank Engine anymore, please don't make me do this again. I can't face it. But remind yourself about your playful side. You know, it's about noticing, you know, taking a pause for a moment, having a purpose, and then becoming more playful. As a colleague of mine, you know, has and Michaela Thomas from the Thomas Connection is really big about that, and I love what she does, and she's very much about all on self-compassion. But she said so much of that comes from giving ourselves permission as adults to be more playful, with intent, with purpose. And I think when we forget that, it's easy to forget.
I think we do, and I think the way we talk about it quite a lot, the Mindful Breastfeeding School, is to look at what you've enjoyed, what brings you pleasure in your life, the activities, the things that you've done, and then to think about how can you incorporate the elements of that into your life with your baby or with your children. And so I don't know, it could be like you're missing, I don't know, your beach holidays or something. Well, you know, what is it about beach holiday you love? Well, if it's the sunshine, or if it's the, you know, being by the water, well then, you know, make a plan to go out with your baby and find some water, you know, and go and do that. Or, you know, for me, with my kids, when it was those sort of quite at times relentless days, a bit Groundhog Day, like you say, with playing the same games over and over again, clearing up the same messes, you know, music is my love too. And so for me, having toys and having the stuff in the house that meant that we could have music in our lives. We actually bought my 2-year-old a karaoke machine, which he was far too young for. And we used to put it on and we used to play karaoke together. And it was really fun. And it was music he didn't know, but it was music that I knew. And that's what we did. And we just have a microphone and we got really silly. And that was definitely based in something that I was interested in, and that, and that's okay, isn't it? It's okay to incorporate. It doesn't have to be all day about just meeting the needs of our children. We can be asking ourselves, well, actually, where can I get a bit of fun out of this as well?
Absolutely. It has to be. With Beyond Birth, we talk about this a lot, about what we naturally choose to do when we take time for ourselves. We often think that it's time without children, yes, that we need that alone time. And I completely get that, especially when you can't even have a wee without, baby crying or somebody banging on the door. And it can feel like you have that knee-jerk escape reaction. You need to just run and I just need time for me. Yeah. But the mindset shift is about taking time for you in the task that you're doing with your child. And that can look like visualizing going somewhere else, to that beach perhaps, or it can look like just taking a moment to really check in within how you're feeling. Give yourself a virtual hug, or just put your hand on your heart, take a few deep breaths. These are little moments of self-care that actually make a big difference to how we feel in those moments when perhaps we do just want to run away and take that hour to ourselves, which, that if we're constantly feeling about the times that we're not having to ourselves, that breeds resentment.
Yeah.
And then we feel guilty for needing that time away from our children. Oh, that must make me a really bad mom because I just need some time to myself. So mindset shift is like, take time for yourself when you have your babies, yes, with you 100%. And your children. Yeah. And once you give yourself permission to do that, the difference in how you feel is enormous. It's like, oh, yeah. Wish somebody had told me that. I felt that when I sort of discovered that around about, I think Milo's, he's my second boy, so he's now 13. So he was around about 2 years old, and suddenly, I was doing some more training for myself, and I suddenly was that came up, and I just thought, oh wow, okay, so we've gone through 4, nearly 5 years of me being a parent by this stage, and I hadn't known it, and I just thought, I wish I'd known that. So now it's one of the first things that I preach, and it's all through my book. And it's so many parents don't realize how easy it is to just give yourself permission to do these things in the moment. It's almost like we're waiting for somebody to give us the permission. We need that external validation of somebody saying, it's okay, you can do that. And we all need reminders. I mean, I'm 16 years in now, but I still need daily reminders for certain things, which is, where social media is probably really great, because the posts that are out there now, it's wonderful, because I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot, now I need to do that for me now. Or podcasts, obviously, like yours. And I love listening to podcasts. You see, there's no shame in putting on an audio while you're taking care of your babies, for instance, and actually, if they can tune into it as well, then all the better. It makes a difference, whether it's music or meditation. It's about how they witness how you are in that moment, and they feed from that. So they'll get your emotion.
Yes. And it's important for children to know that it's important that as they grow, they are meeting their own needs and tuning in with who they are and what, and they learn that through watching us. And I don't think any child does particularly well in that regard if they've just watched their mother just give herself away, for 20 years or whatever it is, just always 100% putting the family first and not herself. I feel very strongly that isn't the right message to be giving our children.
Yeah, me too. But it may well be the only message we were shown, which means that we're conditioned to think like that subconsciously. So consciously, even if we're saying, oh, I don't want to be like that, our natural response is to be like that. So that's where the work comes in. That's where we, when we recognize that in ourselves and we choose to make the change and to break the cycle, that isn't easy.
No.
It's a choice, and often we need hand holding through that. So that's where external support is brilliant. Somebody impartial, somebody non-judgmental, somebody to hold space for you, to help you to feel heard and held, but equally to process why you're feeling like you are and what you can do about it. And that, that's really empowering. I mean, I'm such, I know I'm a therapist and I'm a coach, and of course I'm biased to this, but I have coaching and therapy. It is so non-negotiable for me to keep doing that. I've been through quite a rocky journey, as many of my clients have too, and I know what it takes to keep healing and keep growing and keep feeling okay, to get through every day. So that's where, I talk about the non-negotiables. What are your non-negotiables for emotional well-being? Well, one of those is absolutely going and offloading and talking through what's coming up for me and processing it, but so importantly to feel heard in a way that is really healthy. That, and as much as we as parents have family and friends around us, all the support in the world isn't going to make any difference if you're not feeling heard and you're not able to be honest about how you're feeling and the thoughts that you're having. Because so many of us don't want to upset our loved ones, or we don't want our friends to think badly of us because they might not understand, or you think, I can't talk to them, they've got too much on their plate anyway, who do I go to? And that's such a big deal when you become a parent. It's this not wanting to offload your problems onto somebody else, because it's too much of a burden and they're already going through so much, etc., etc. So that's where, external support services are so handy, or forums, or just places where you can feel heard. Absolutely. Really importantly.
No, I agree. I wouldn't be without them myself. Oh, Sophie, it's always so lovely chatting to you. What is coming up for you and your wonderful business over the coming months?
Well, I am focused on the things that are really inherent in me to do right now, and that is just to keep this mission growing. This, to me it is simple, but what I would love is for in the next, near future, next year or 2 or 5, hopefully no more than that all people who are becoming pregnant or before pregnancy are saying, why wouldn't we invest in our emotional well-being at this time? To me, it's like, it is so simple, but it isn't. I know that it isn't. And everybody has to be in this together. Everybody has to understand the importance of it. If only the government were to run the same campaign that they did for fruit and veg for 5 a day for emotional well-being. I say that all the time. And then the people would learn the importance of it and would try to practice it more. I'm not saying that everybody would suddenly make those changes, but because it takes time. But after a while, it becomes the norm, and that's what I'm continuing to do this year. Hopefully, my training, will have more people trained running these support sessions for parents. We've got nearly 200 practitioners worldwide now, and if you think about it, all of them just even reaching, just a handful of couples each that is introducing this to them, then that makes my heart fly. And I'm no different to every other parent out there. I'm still on a journey myself with my children, but I love to support parents and parent professionals who, especially it's those who really recognize the need for this. And you know, that is growing, obviously. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic that we're living through, people are finding it harder, really struggling. But equally, it's an opportunity to have more discussions around mental health and you know, our emotions as a whole. So that has worked in our favor in lots of ways, because it's brought attention to what we're doing. So that's what my business is doing this year, really, is hopefully just to keep growing and keep reaching more families, so that they you know, they pass that on to their children, and that just becomes the norm. It's like, why wouldn't we do this? Why wouldn't we invest in ourselves in this way? It's a no-brainer to me.
I agree 100%. And where can we find you, Sophie? I will put your details in the notes, but if you could just share, if people want to work with you as a parent, or if people want to come and train with you and become a practitioner, how do they find you?
So themummacoach.com, that's mama with 2 M's, MAMMA coach.com. And also I'm on Instagram as the Mama Coach, Beyond Birth Guide as well. So that's on Instagram. So my Beyond Birth Guide is the online book. Also, you can get that on Amazon as well, and the training, everything's listed on the Mama Coach. And also, if you want to follow me on Beyond Birth, that's our collective as well of incredible kindred practitioners who are doing amazing things to bring emotional well-being to their clients. So it's very exciting times. It's still hard work. We're pioneering, as you know, as you are too. It's not easy being a pioneer. We have to be very tenacious. We have to be very passionate. We have to really believe in the cause. You know, I'm not talking about burning bras and marching on the streets, although sometimes I definitely feel like we need to. But you know, I think it does take perhaps some passion and tenacity, but we will get there. It will happen, and it's happening.
The shift is happening. I can feel it. I see it. It's exciting, but like you say, you have to keep on sharing and spreading the message and spreading the love, and it will like you say, impacting as many people as we can with this knowledge is really important, and that's what's going to make a huge difference.
Exactly. And I absolutely love what you're doing. You're so inspiring, Anna.
Thank you.
Not only as a friend, but equally in your business and all that you're doing for parents. You know, breastfeeding is a, oh my goodness.
We haven't even touched on that today. We'll have to come back and speak about that. But absolutely. It's you know, this stuff really does help, because people do find themselves in challenging situations with breastfeeding and questioning and all the things we've talked about today. So the two match each other so nicely. Well, thank you so much, Sophie. I really appreciate you joining me, and I'll see you very soon.
All right, darling. See you soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your spending your time here. If you'd like to know more, a good place to start would be with the Mindful Breastfeeding book. It's available from Amazon around the world, and it's a short interactive guide to mindful breastfeeding with journaling and guided relaxations, and just more talk on the importance of having a calm and connected infant feeding experience. You can find our website at www.mindfulbreastfeedingschool.com. The link is below, and on there you'll get access to our practitioners directory. So if you as a parent and you'd like to work with somebody who's trained in mindful breastfeeding skills, as well as all the practical skills as well, to be able to help you on your infant feeding journey, then you will find someone you can work with there. They also run classes as well as one-to-one sessions, so go and have a look around. And you can find access to our courses. So if you are somebody who would like to add mindful breastfeeding to your practice, then please do come and find our courses. We've got free training on there for professionals and birth workers, as well as access to be able to talk to me. So do leave me messages, do get in touch on social media. All the links are below. I look forward to hearing from you.